Okay, so this is the tutorial video on how to do association analysis in Orange software. And I am opening Orange and starting a fresh workflow. Here we go. So I'm going to open a new workflow, and the first file I'm going to use, you can find it on Canvas. And it's under, again, this is my development environment. It doesn't look exactly like yours will because this is unfinished. I'm going to start with the tutorial 2-item basket. I'm also going to use the back to school one. So I'm going to use both of these, not at the same time, but I'm going to illustrate that. And then this will be your assignment. And these are the ones that you need, the data you need to do the assignment that is here. And let's get started. So back in Orange, I have a new empty new workflow. I'm going to use the dataset tutorial 2-item basket, which is a CSV. So I'm going to do this and I'm going to import it. At this point, you know exactly what I'm doing because this is about the 15th video or so. So I'm uploading the data, which my file structure is different because I'm not doing it from Canvas. But yours is on Canvas, and the file you need is tutorial 2-item basket we're going to start with. So this is this extremely simplistic data. And again, you need to set up your data exactly like this. So transaction one, no ones and no zeros, unless you actually wanted to analyze the not purchased as part of your item sets. But usually you don't. So transaction I'm going to just ignore. And then these two, very importantly, they're not numbers. They look like numbers, they smell like numbers, but you want to make them categories, okay? So it's like category milk butter. You don't want to make these numeric. So you want to make sure that your column type is C for categorical. Very important. Your association analysis will not work without this. I guarantee it because I tried it. It didn't work for me. Okay. And then hit go. And then your data should be all set and loaded. Okay. Now, I have on my Orange the association package. You probably don't. So what you have to do is go to Options, Add-ins, and this is this package thing. You have to be online for this to work. And there's something called Associate. You need that. This is actually a very simple package. There's only 2 widgets in it, but you need it. Because without it, you're not going to be able to do association analysis. This is the code that does the association analysis. So make sure that you click on that and it will install for you if you need to install it. Because it does not come with the base Orange. That is my dog like scratching on stuff. Moses, here, sweetie. Moses, no more scratching. All right. So now I have the data installed and I have association installed. The first thing to do is look at frequent item sets. So what this will do is it will do an item set, and you have to actually click something to get this to work. Now, the reason it's not showing anything is I want to do these little like setter things. If this is set like really high, like this is set to support 70 or 80, there's no item sets that have that level of support. So I'm going to put that back to like 0. And then minimum number of item sets, none. So like that is actually my item set thing. Now, this is not super exciting. So what this is showing us is that in the data, that I really should display it. So we have 5 milks and 6 butters out of 10 transactions. So we're looking at this, which is our item sets. So milk, the support is 50%, which is item set of 1, and then butter is 60% as an item set of 1. Now the only 2 item set thing we can have, and we can have support for this, but not an association rule because you can talk about the item set milk and butter as support. You can't. There's no 2 item association rule. It's milk to butter, butter to milk, but there's no like milk butter to something else because there is nothing else. So the support of milk and butter combined is 2 or 20%, and that comes from right here. because there are 1, 2 out of the 10 that have milk and butter. So that is the only thing you can do with just looking at the frequent item sets, because it's a really simple data. But you want to understand the simple data because it gets really complicated really fast, because like everything's binary and then like 2 to the n power basically. It gets really, really, like, the number of item sets you can have gets pretty complicated pretty fast. Okay, so this is the output of the item sets. Just simply looking at this, and that should be pretty understandable. Okay. The next thing we want to do is we want to actually look at association rules. This frequent item sets this is not, there's no A to B association rule yet. There's just looking at the item sets. Okay. So the next thing we can do is use the other widget in the association. There's only 2 of them. These rules are not, like, in and of themselves, they're not super complicated. What can get complicated is when you have like a lot of data, a lot of items, and then you get a really fancy analysis. So association rules I'm going to look at next, and then I'm going to connect the data to this. Okay. I think I'm going to, if I can figure it out with my fingers. Again, I have a lot of, I mean, Orange is good software, but for some reason I have a lot of like physical connection issues with my mouse. So this is the association rules widget, which just like the other one does absolutely nothing. This one though, if you hit find, so these are all set to minimums, which is good because it will show everything. In a simple data set, that's fine. As your data set gets more complicated, what you want to do is like filter out things that aren't like a high enough association for you to care about. So just click the find rules and you get, or at least you should get, that. And you're like, what is this? There's only, in this data, there's only milk to butter and butter to milk. So the support for butter and milk is 20%. That's combined. The confidence for butter to milk is the conditional probability of milk given butter, and that's 0.33. And then the conditional probability of butter to milk. Now this is, the order matters for confidence, but not for support. There's other metrics. I honestly don't know what all of these are. And then lift is 0.66, which basically the lift of less than 1 tells us that butter and milk are not super strongly associated. So that is really all you can do with this data set because there's nothing else to look at. What is kind of handy to do in this case is to save this. And so what you can do is you can make a data set out of this by putting it in a table. Because you might want to like play with this in Excel or something too. So you do an output table of rules. Okay, so what I just did is I put a data table widget, which we're all familiar with at this point, and then I'm going to connect the association rules. But I don't want matching data. I don't want this because there isn't even any matching data. What I want to do is I want to do, click on this and do rules and data. Now this is going to give me this, which is kind of nice because you can now take this and you can export it into Excel and stuff. And then you can work with these a little more because Orange is a little restricted. Like there's more stuff you could do if you export this and make a CSV out of it, or an Excel. So this, what I would then want to do is, I haven't shown you this widget before, I don't think. There is a widget called Save Data under the Data menu. And so take the data table, and you can do this with any data table. You can't, remember, you can't save the whole workflow. Like this is, if you save the workflow, which you can do, you file, save as, this just becomes an Orange workflow and OWS file, which you can't open in anything other than Orange. But if you do a data table with the association rules and then save the data, then you can make a save or save as file, and it will have association rules, which I'll just put somewhere. I don't know where. I'll put it in videos. And so I'll put it in videos, and then I just did, it will save automatically as a CSV. It will also do, I don't know what it will do. It will do a couple other file types, but CSVs are usually my favorite. And so then we can open this in Excel or whatnot. Probably could open it in SPSS, and it will give us an Excel file of these rules. It's got some metadata kind of junk in there that you don't necessarily need because it's just the data types. But it will give you this, and then you can work with it in other programs besides Orange, which I guess like business people kind of like that kind of thing. Okay, so that was a really simple example, but it's kind of too simple to be like a lot of fun. So let's do another example and do a little bit more with that. Okay, so let's go and do a new workflow. Oops, not a new file. I'm being sort of an idiot here. New Orange workflow. And then there's another data set on Canvas for you called Back to School. So let's do CSV import. And then mine is on my local computer, but yours is somewhere on Canvas. Trust me, I put it there. And it's this one, the tutorial Back to School, because it's a little fancier and there's a little more to do. So in our new workspace, we're going to import Back to School, wherever that is. It's right. It's interesting that Orange doesn't default to like my most recent stuff. It defaults to some older stuff. So Back to School. And this is a little bit fancier. Once again, though, don't just hit OK once you upload your data. You've got to set the data types. Transaction can be ignored. These other ones are set to categorical. They are not numbers. They look like numbers. They smell like numbers. They're categories because they're yes, no. And they're flags whether or not the item was purchased, and you should use these, not anything else. So, what do we want to do first? There's only two things to do here. So let's look first at the frequent item sets. Okay. Now, item sets just does item sets. It doesn't do anything else. It doesn't do any association rules. So under your association menu, that if you need to install it, go under options, add-ins, and get the association package because it's not part of the default. And hit frequent item sets, and then send this in here, and then click on it, and you get this. Now, this is simplified because the support is set to 70%. I would go back and run everything. So in this data, and I kind of forgot to explain what this data was. This is data that I believe I completely made this up. I make up a lot of things. The reason the small teaching data sets, honestly, I make up the vast majority of this. But I never remember which ones I made up and which ones I sort of borrowed, but most of them I made up. So this is like 8 transactions of like whether or not, what people purchased like when they went back to school shopping. So pen, ink, paper, and eraser. So you can have an item set of one item, although there aren't any that are just one item. You can have 2 items, which are pen, and 2 items like pen and paper. You can have 3 items like eraser, paper, and ink is a 3-item one. So you have 4 individual items, and you can permute these as 1 item, 2 item, 3 items. You can talk about support for 4 items, although there are no 4-item sets. But a 4-item you wouldn't have an association rule with because you need a 5th item for that. But you can have various association rules of 1 item to 1 item, 2 items to 1 item. And so always remember that association rules are in terms of item sets, not individual items. And you can think about all the like combination association rule settings. But the frequent item sets just looks at support. So this right here is the different supports for items at different levels. Okay. The easiest way to look at it is like this. So if you close them all, this is just if it's 1 item. So pen equals 1. Of the transactions, you need the data to look at this as well. And I can't move this. I don't know whether it's the computer or the but anyways, I'm kind of cheating and looking at import options instead of the data set. So pen is 6 out of 8. If you just look at the pen column, the support for this is going to be 6 out of 8 because that's a frequency. So that's going to give you 75%. This one's going to be 5 out of 8, 7 out of 8, and 1 out of 8. So if we look at the 1 item sets, that's where that's coming from. Okay. So that's these. Then we go down here, and then this is a little hard to follow the way it's written, honestly. Pen, ink, paper. So the way this is read is pen and ink is 3, which I believe it should be. Pen and ink should be 3 of these. these are basically just item set frequencies back there. So pen and ink is 1, 2, 3. See that? It's not considering the other ones. It's just saying that of these two, 3 out of 8 have pen and ink. Okay. And so pen, ink, paper would be the next one. And then there's 2 out of 8 that have pen, ink, paper, so that should be 0.25. So that's how to read these. They're literally just frequencies of each item set, okay? And pen and ink, you can also have pen and paper with considering these two as an item set. And so you look at these as you, so this 1, 2, 3, there's your 3 item set, 1, 2, 1, 2. So you can look at all of these, and these are the different possible permutations of item sets. And you could actually do this by hand if you wanted to, but it's kind of a pain. So that's what the frequent item sets gives you. Now, if you wanted to just basically only care about like the really kind of like widely sold ones, you could do what the Orange does this kind of by default. You could just look at like only care about like support of greater than 60%, which would just be pen by itself, pen and paper, ink and paper. The other ones, none of them have support this high. So maybe you don't care about like things that are not very frequent, so you can filter your support. This is if you basically have a crazy output. You would never want to have 10,000 item sets to look at, but I have a feeling that like, I'm not a business person, so I don't know like how complicated these get, but I have a feeling that there's literally jobs where people basically do this association analysis as their job in sales and marketing. So we're just learning the basics because that's all I know. So that is how you look at the item sets and look at the frequencies of various combinations of item sets. But that does nothing for association rules. Okay. So what you want to do is you want to actually look at association rules. And so that's the other widget. There's only 2 of them. And this widget here, send it all the data. Make sure again that that first column was ignored. I did that kind of quickly. So the transaction number, don't like, make sure that that is just flagged as ignored because you don't want, like you're not analyzing that. So this now gives me the association rules. And for whatever reason, despite the fact that I don't think Orange does this for anything else, you actually have to click the find rules to get the association rules. And then you get the association rules and you're like, oh my God, what is all that? Well, it's not so bad because this is like all the different, like, remember there were no 4 item transactions. Does that make any sense? Maximum actually could be 4 here, but I don't think that's going to change anything. Consequent. Now, here's why we only see this. Watch. Okay. Look at that. So the consequent is actually set to 1 by default. Remember, it's A first and then B as, so like by A and then by B. And it's basically a conditional situation where you're analyzing how B is associated with the purchase of A. So the default was actually set to 1, which is why when I did this initially, I only get like 1 item here, but you can also look at multiples. So you can look at that, and then you have like one, so you have multiples in the consequent as well. So you can look at the purchase of pen and ink conditioned on paper, and that's exciting, right? So you can fiddle with that. And let's keep it a little simple though, and let's just do the one. Let's just do the one. Keep it a little easier. Okay. So do that. Find rules. I'm probably not going to be super picky when I grade this homework because I have a feeling people might interpret these slightly differently. But just to keep it a little simple, let's just look at the ones with 1 item as a consequent. So what would you want to do with this? I would want to look at the highest lift so you can sort them. And so the highest lift is the strongest association, and that happens to be purchasing an eraser given that you've purchased ink and pens. That is uniquely the highest lift value. So that might be interesting to somebody that is interested in selling erasers and seeing what people buy when they buy an eraser and they buy ink and papers. I don't know. I don't really, like, everything I do is on computers these days. So that might be something of interest. Okay. What else might we want to look at? We might want to look at high confidence, because high confidence will tell us like which ones. Remember that confidence is a probability value and lift is not. Lift is a ratio of probability values. But as a ratio of probability values, it's no longer constrained from 0 to 1. And so lift will have a broader range and probably a little bit more stronger quote meaning, because you're not constrained by probability values. Whereas confidence is the conditional probability of the consequent given the antecedent, and it measures association that way. So paper and eraser are not very related, are not very associated, because the confidence is pretty low. The highest confidence of 1, which is the highest confidence possible, occurs paper to eraser. So everybody that bought paper, everybody that bought an eraser also bought paper. And everybody that bought ink and erasers also bought paper. And everybody that bought ink, everybody that bought an eraser bought ink. And everybody that bought paper eraser also bought ink. And you can go back to the data and trace that. Even though I kind of like just forgot all of what I just said. So, but if you go back and look at eraser, there's only one purchase. So everybody that bought, confidence is measuring the strength of this association of eraser with these guys. Well, everybody that bought an eraser, which is only one, also bought ink and paper. Okay. So you kind of have to look at the metrics all together. So this doesn't really have a very high support, but it has a very strong association of these three items based on the confidence measures. The lift measure, the strongest lift measure here, again, was, I forgot, was the eraser, ink, and paper. So that was also the strongest lift measure. So this, and the support though, so that's why you want to look at like all three metrics, because the support is actually fairly low because it's not that popular. But the associations are when you consider that particular purchase of three items. Okay. So are there any very high support transactions? No. None of these are like super, super high, but in other words, none of these like 100% of the people buy. So that, you kind of just play with these. I'm not a salesperson, so I'm honestly just kind of faking it. And I kind of find this exciting and fun. But you might also want to do some filtering. So another thing that you could do is you could filter. And so if you only wanted to find like confidence that was really, really high, maybe do that and then find rules. This is actually kind of exciting. So these are the ones with the highest confidence. Maybe you want to get even higher, like 90%. So the confidence of 1, now you're getting that one back. So you can play with these little filters on support and confidence. And you can also like maximum number of rules, but like 10,000 rules, that would be like crazy to look at all those, but you could. The other thing you can do is you can do this. These little things down here, you can filter by only specific things. So you could filter by like just the ink, and that would give you like all of the rules that I just typed in ink. So this is only the rules that contain the ink, and then like you can look at like certain specific items. So that's kind of exciting. What else can we do? We can do something like find the specifics. So say that I want to look at pen as the antecedent and paper. So I want to look at pen and paper. I can do this. I can do pen, right? And I can do paper. So I'm going to look, this is just going to give me like that specific rule, pen and paper and nothing else. I'm going to do find rules. And so this is like if you wanted to look at one specific thing, then you can answer the questions on support, confidence, and lift for this one specific association rule. So the this one has a confidence of 0.83, which means that the probability of buying paper given you bought a pen is 0.83. So that's pretty high for confidence. So you can look at specific association rules and specific lift values. Don't forget that you have to keep clicking this every time you like change something down here or any of the filters. You do have to do the find rules again because you do. So you have to sort of play with these and interpret these and work with them that way and learn how to play with these. So I gave you like some questions on the homework that's kind of like basic stuff. I mean, I'm not like super skilled in this either, but it is kind of like a nice way to look at data. It's different. I mean, the whole it's considered data mining and it's considered unstructured analysis. It's not I shouldn't say that because honestly, I don't know 100% what this is used for, except obviously there's a lot of business and marketing uses of this. So play around a little with the association analysis. Um, two, I gave you two data sets and I gave you 15 questions. Um, so I want you to actually restructure Fruit Basket, but I think I already gave you the restructured data too. So make sure that you get that data in that binary structure with just ones in the columns when it's included. So I want you to show the workflow, run the frequent item set, run the association analysis, answer some questions about lift, and a little bit of filtering, and some association roles, then use the other data set. And this data set's actually kind of exciting. This is the data set on Thanksgiving dinners. So that one's actually kind of fun. And again, I'm not probably going to be like super harsh about grading these as long as you do them because some of them there's a little bit of interpretation involved. But that should be some fun, and it's at least a little introduction and hands-on work doing some association analysis. So that is the tutorial on association analysis. Enjoy.